Hello, everyone. Oh, perfect, it's working. I wanted to start different, but then I thought I was sitting in the hotel room and I wanted to say thank you, because it's my first time in India and I'm so honored to be here. Thank you to my friend who brought me here, and I just want to say thank you because everyone was so genuine, and I just loved how you came up with your attitude. And before I start, I guess it's character what AI and also no optimization tool can take away. So thanks so much for being the way you are, and yeah, I hope I can take you on a little journey about decision making and about humans, and I hope you enjoy it and leave with one good decision after this talk. I feel like when we talk about technologies, there is sometimes a thing we don't talk about, and that's what every human, if we are a CEO, if we are an engineer, if we work in politics, have in common, and that is that we want to belong. And that us humans, I believe, came here to create and not just to consume, and to do good. And this is a bit a story from me, from what we've built in the last years, and it will be a bit nerdy, so we will talk about technology. I will bring some examples. And when we think about belonging and doing good, what it is that no one wants to go home at night and say, oh, I took a bad decision. I guess everyone wants to go home and say oh, I did something good today. And this is where a bit of the nerdy journey starts on how we take decisions. And in order, when we think about how we take decisions, there's one thing we have to understand. It's how we created the world. Everything you see on the picture here, I took some examples. When you sit in a plane, did you ever think about how many cause relations have to go right that you can fly a plane? I think it's so crazy what us as humanity have built. And then when you think that there are a million parts in this plane where engineers have developed for years and years so that this little girl can sit in the plane. And then also when you go and switch on the light and that someone found electricity. And what I like about this, but what also makes so many bad outcomes in this world today, is that everything we trust on are root cause relations. And there's one problem that is inherently complexity. That is something that can't really be described as rules because there are so many variables. And the problem with complexity is that if one variable fails along the way, it leads to a very bad outcome. And that is my story when I was sitting in research. I'm an engineer by background. We were writing papers. We had this large industry projects, and I was sitting down with the managers and I said, why are you so bad in taking decisions? And they said, we would decide better, but we don't understand. So then it was a nerd in me who was reading mathematician books at night, and I said that basically every decision we take is an optimization problem. And I want to take you on a journey now with what AI can do, what AI can't do, and why this is so exciting if we combine it. So first, being here, I got so excited because, of course, I was preparing for the talk, so I read a lot of news. And I believe what we can all appreciate, that we are living in a magical century. I guess it's to appreciate what we humans have created and what we are up to is the largest opportunity we've ever had. And I feel if we think about the emotions and then we think about good decision making and about the technology, this is so exciting. So before I start with what AI can't do, I guess it's a large opportunity. I'm using it every day. But, and now it's getting a bit more tech heavy, to understand how AI works and why this can't, or why there's a missing piece to take good decisions in any industry. I'll draft this graphic and I'll walk you through it. So on the left-hand side, you see the world. Let it think in when the last decision you take. I always love to take the example because everyone understands it. If you want to get a meal, and you are like, oh, I want to have a hot meal today, it should be maybe a bit spicy, I want some proteins in it, that's always my funny example, but I only have 17 minutes to get it. So thinking about what meal to get at a price below $6, and then thinking you only have this amount of minutes to go, this is what I mean by optimization problems. So it is a thing you can change, things that you can't change, and you want to find the best opportunity. And if you look at the world, like every decision we take in businesses, in supply chain, where we invest in, and how all this is connected, I always say it's like dots and then rules between these dots. And I love this graphic because it explains what LLMs do. So if we talk about what LLM is not the answer for and where it's great for, what we call AI, is to understand that this LLM, it's like trillions of dots that is very good in detecting patterns. This is why LLMs are amazing for like a meeting summary. They're great if you, also in healthcare, if you have like loads and loads of data and you try to find patterns for humans to get healthier. And then there is a large, I would say, list of problems, and this is moving to me introducing for you like the second, I would say it's the second model category if we put it in the tech language. It is like deterministic models. So what we've created, because I just had the urge for everyone to take better decisions, is that we can put reality into a computer. And what reality means for me is that if you sit down and think about what is an optimization problem, you know that there are things that you can change and that you can't change. And bear with me that I do a bit of math, but I'll take the very practical step. And this is for everyone now in the room who has a business, who wants to grow a business, who is in politics, to think about that every decision you take is a multidimensional optimization problem. And the thing that LLMs can't do, but that these deterministic models can, which is lots of operations research, is that we can not only have dots, but we have rules. For example, let's take the supply chain, and you want to deliver something to your customer, and then you say, oh yeah, it has to be less than a week. And then you have, for some investments, you only have a certain amount of dollars, and this is a constraint. So if you think about solving your problem, you can always start with asking, like, what is the goal I want to achieve? And that's basically the maximization and minimization function. And then, to take it not that math heavy, it's like there are things you can change and things that you can't change. And that is basically all these little dots which are either constant or variables. And then you have things that you have to work with. I mean, if everyone would have endless time, endless money, endless health, we would not have these problems we have today in the planet. And yeah, and this is what I wanted to bring with you, because most of the problems we have are operations research problems on math. It is on rules and on definite cause relations. And yeah, I guess it's like a billion news on LLMs, and we sometimes forgot the math behind it, and that we need to look at another layer infrastructure. To take it very practically, I brought an example. So I called one of our clients before I came here, and I said, like, what's the industry example you would bring? And he would say data centers. And when I researched the news, I think it is crazy how India will invest in all these data centers. So I sit down and I thought about, like, what example do I bring? And then I realized, like, everyone is in this hype using AI, and imagine it will just be cut off and you could use it. Like, we would all sit here, lights would turn off, you could not access any language model, and it would be blocked for 4 months. What I want you to feel with this is that when we talk about technology, it will all fall and rise with the hardware we have. And like this amount of hardware you want to invest in, it is crazy, and this is so amazing. And I have a client, so he's a supplier of one of the components of the data centers. And what we do with them to optimize their supply chain is not using LLMs, but the optimization. So we go in and see, like, how can we make it possible? And now I take this math function on, like, maximizing the deployment speed. And deployment speed with the data centers means they will go live, you will have a cable, they will have energy, they can compute. And only if one part is missing, they will not go live and no model will ever run on them. And to thinking about building this data center, you have like million of time dependencies in the supply chain, you have loads of different components, and what we build with them is like, when do they have to source which part? If one worker is sick, like how can they assemble it in the right order? Then we log on like, what do we have to assemble in which order and to source in which order, which is like the decision variables we are looking at on each part, on each working step to assemble this huge data center, is that this will be there on time. So the maximization we are having with this client is like being on-time delivery as a constraint and seeing how we can fit all the workers, all the working steps, all the components you need, and combining them. And talking about combination, that is when we go, and that's why I put it here, with the mass models, because what they do, they say, okay, I have one goal, which is like bringing this data centers live very, very quickly. And then we go into the driver trees and realize, okay, a data center consists out of loads of different hardware devices. You need loads of different people in the supply chain to make it work. So you need to have a lot of combinations that work, like real hardware, then the timing, then the people that do the work. So that's a large combination problem from millions of opportunities. And that's actually what the math models we are building do, to like calculate through all these options and then tell you in which order to source which part, to bring it live, in which consequence, so that you will never be in the situation on like 4 months of like blackout because we didn't push the hardware that we need to take good decisions. And that's what I love, because it's like closing the loop between hardwares we need, LLMs, which are great for summaries, which are great for pattern recognition, and then the optimization models that do all the combination that we humans can't, that an ERP system and an Excel can't, to find the best combinations that we need to basically represent reality and get it working. And now, almost my favorite slide. It is for everyone in the room who has to make investment into AI, into data centers. Because where we focus on is where the energy flows, and this is where we will put all our head and money. So for everyone who is deciding to put money into AI, to think about how can I serve this nation, my business, in order to take good decisions, we have to think about the infrastructure. And if we think about the infrastructure, yes, we have to think about data centers, but we also need to think about what does it cost me to answer one question. And then it is very important to see, like, to win as a nation, to win as India, to win as Europe, us together, it is like, how fast are we? How many questions can a nation answer? In what time, in which cost, and in which frame? So this is why it's so important to understand what questions and problems we as humanity belong to an LLM, which is about patterns. And then it's very important to understand which of the problems we as humanity try to solve that are combinatorial. And then to understand that sometimes it is better to build a deterministic formula of 10 variables that represent your root cause relations and not let trillions of variables run, because it will be very costly to take the wrong decisions on the infrastructure. And so I hope it was not too nerdy. I don't even know where the time is. Ah, there, okay. I'll go back. So this is for everyone in the room. You can reach out anytime, because I love to discuss these topics, because it's really about going as deep into the tech as we need to understand how the models get deployed and where to put the money. And for me, it's so, I've started all this thing not because I thought models were cool, was just a logical consequence, but because I wanted us humans to take good decisions. And I just didn't want to accept that we have so many bad outcomes, health, social, environment, financially, in this world, because as humans build a world we don't understand ourselves. So then I dig deeper, and I was in research, and I just started creating. And then I realized, oh, it's great, these two categories, but why is most of the people only talk about this LLMs? And because we Germans love to not only chat, but bring things to actions, I brought 3 steps, and that is from our company. We have this, I'll always say it's a napkin, a 10-year plan, how we bring that to the industry. We've come a long way, so we are live, we have clients, it's working, but there's also a lot of step ahead. So I have my 10-year plan, which has 3 sections, which is the right to play, the right to win, and the right to sustain. And I thought I bring 3 things that might be helpful for you from each stage on how we build that model, how we solve it, so that we humans can take good decisions. So the first thing is, and that will be, now I'm taking a step into the data analytics, the way one thesis we had, we said humans need to take good decisions, and for this we need to be able to map the relations, cause relations that lead to outcomes independent of the data quality. So if you think how every data analytics works, it's like you collect a lot of data, then you put analytics on top and see what comes out. That is pattern recognition, that's data analytics. And if you think about it, we turn that 180% upside down. So we do not start with the data, we start asking, what is the most important decision you have to take today? It's one decision. And then we say, okay, the world is loud, it's complex, but what are the 3 to 5 influencing factors, drivers, that are most relevant for you to answer this question? This is when we start to build the driver trees, the first relations. And then we say, what do we need for you to get the answer on these drivers? And then the answer will be that we get the information, it's an information point, either from a human, the gut feeling, human as the most valuable information source, or we get it from a data system. But it's so important to, because it is wrapping the head around, is like to go home and think like, okay, I've taught data analytics is working this way for decades now. And we forgot that we collect data to take good decisions, not because data is so cool. Maybe it's cool, but... and this was the most important decision we took in building these models, because we started with the problem and the value, and we unlocked the most important data source, and this is humans and the gut feeling. I always say, if I have this person in the production line at our clients, and you could put so many data, so many pattern recognition on it, and you have this one person who was there for 25 years, getting up every day, and he knows when the machine breaks down. And we love to hear these humans that know it, that trained their gut feeling, their pattern recognition for years, and to be able to start with the problem, not with the data, so that even a company that doesn't have any good digitalization can start taking good decisions. And this is a way of thinking, right? That's not tech. It is like, I focus on what I have to solve, and I don't forget about the human, because they're the most important data source we have. So that's how we build the model. So it's like a whiteboard. You can click building blocks. You can say, oh, that's a chair. That's this nice man. That's a stage. We have light. Light is coming from electricity. And put it like, and that's like building models. And I promise to myself we will making models, like building models, as easy as playing cards on a Friday night. And I guess we brought it from years to now we can build accurate models of system in days, which is crazy. And we love to put the human in the focus. And then, because we're running out of time, else I get so excited, I promised myself I don't talk too much today. The right to win is to solve this optimization at scale. So, because what we do with hopefully not only us, is that it's heavy math. So there are some math problems that haven't been solved yet. So when we think about solving the problems of humanity, we have to look that we get the math right. We can talk about that later. I'll skip that. And the third one is, for me, the most important thing. when we go to a client, when we start the pilots, we build the first model for the first question together. But the success criterion is that we leave them with a tool, like an Excel on steroids, someone said, that they can build models themselves. So we don't build one world model. We build the tool that every business owner, every politician, every banker can build their model for their company, for their system, for their nation, very accurate, with way less data points. Because I said, and that is maybe my last slide, you know, I was sitting there like years back, and I didn't want to accept that we've built a world that is so complex that it leads to bad outcomes. So I thought, no one alone can change all these problems we have with humanity. I have to close. So I said, for me, the logical consequence was we have to create a tool, and that is also the last step of our journey, my 10-year plan, that everyone here in the room, politics, can build their own model to take good decisions, to build a tool that is as easy as playing cards, and that we can solve all the problems we have in every sector, every combination, that we as humanity live better lives and everyone gets empowered to do it. Not one world model, but very specific for each case. Yeah, so that's the story. Happy to talk about any nerdy stuff, about any problems, and yeah, thank you so much.